So here we go. I'm about to make myself retarded.
Who can save us from Khamzat Chimaev? Is it Tom Aspinall? Is it Francis Ngannou? Find out in today's video. Today we are going to be matchmaking some matches. Like and sub before we get into it. Let's go. So we're starting with the fight of... Ready? I forgot it. Wait, what is it? Oh, Prates versus MVP. Yeah. I legitimately forgot it. Carlos Prates versus Michael Venom Page is the first fight that I'm going to be putting together. Now, by the way, I just want to say this, I was one of the only guys that said the UFC should do Fiziev versus Charles Oliveira, and they did it. I'm just saying, I may have some sources, I don't know, but no, MVP versus Carlos Prates, to me, is the fight to make next. I think, I've seen people floating around the name of Leon Edwards. I've seen people even say, like, oh, do Adesanya MVP, or, first of all, Adesanya is not fighting MVP, and MVP is not fighting Adesanya. It is what it is. It's all right, but it's just not happening. Why? I don't know. These guys are like barely friends, but they just don't want to fight. It is what it is. If every white guy, like if Strickland was like, hey, I ain't going to fight no other white guys, and if everyone else had that mindset, if every other Hispanic fighter, if every other, I was going to say Indian fighter, but it's just Anjo Jabli. It's just Anjo Jabli, but nonetheless, MVP and Israel Adesanya are not going to fight because they shook hands one time, right? So, and I think Leon Edwards should fight Michael Morales. I really, really want that fight. No reason in particular. It's not like I want to see him get starched, right? But, Prates would starch him too, but you get my point. I just think Prates MVP is the perfect fight to make. I think stylistically it would be such an elite kickboxing, just striking masterclass. I think Prates is a phenomenal kickboxer. Stylistically, he's a little bit different than MVP. He's not as elusive. He does take a little bit more shots, which is why I would probably lean MVP, I'm not going to lie. But I still think it'd be a phenomenal fight because he has that KO power. He has that dynamicism with the spinning elbows and shit now and the nice kicks. He can mix it up really well and use the knees in the clinch and the knees up the middle. I just think it'd be such a great banger of a fight. Throw that as the co-main event of that Brazil card. Dude, imagine that. Main event, Charles Oliveira, Rafael Fiziev. Co-main event, Carlos Prates versus MVP. Can you freaking imagine that? You could literally put just Anjo Jabli on that card, just like jobbers. You could put nobodies on that card, and I'd still say it's a phenomenal card. That is an incredible main and co-main. So I just think it's perfect. I think two big names, two big stars with good stock. The timing matches up. Neither of these guys have injuries. Let's go. Let's do it. So moving on to the winner of the co-main event. I can't believe he did it. He got a spinning elbow against his opponent. This is Lerone Murphy I'm talking about. I know I can't believe it, but you got to do him versus Volkanovski. I know I just shocked some people. I just blew some minds. I have been pushing for Evloev to get the title shot, but that was before he pulled out. Now, I understand they should have not even booked the fight with Aaron Pico to begin with, but he still pulled out of it. And I think the UFC are really taking a hard stance on pullouts right now. You're seeing what they're doing to Arman Tsarukyan. The UFC, if there's nothing more they hate, I'm seeing it now. Maybe it's just a Dana White thing or whatever the case may be. They do not like pullouts. They don't like stuff like that. Even the John Jones thing, that's not a pullout, but that's sort of like almost false advertising, right? Like Dana White almost embarrassed himself for a whole year just for John Jones to say, I'm out. And then he relinquishes the belt and then a week later comes back. So it's just like, that's a whole separate situation. How did I make this about Jones? But you get my point. The UFC hates people that pull out, especially top contenders who are begging for title shots but can't even freaking, I have a toe injury so I can't fight. Because that's what it would be, right? If you're pulling out on a week's notice, it's because you have a minor injury, most likely. Because I'm pretty sure if Movsar Evloev had a major injury, there wouldn't have been talks of rebooking it for 319. And maybe that's another factor as well people aren't really thinking about. Maybe they try to really rebook it for 319 and Evloev was kind of being pushy about it. There's reasons, but nonetheless, they're really pushing for Lerone Murphy Volkanovski. Volk is pushing for it. Of course, Lerone is going to be pushing for it. Fuck it, just do it. Screw Movsar Evloev. No one cares. At the end of the day, he's a pedo. At the end of the day, he fights once a year. At the end of the day, he has 5 pullouts or 4 pullouts. I'm sorry. I don't blame the UFC for not trusting these guys who just pull out of these fights on a week's notice because they have toe injury. I don't know what Evloev's injury was, but again, I'm assuming it was a minor injury. A minor, exactly. Perfect for Evloev, right? So I do think that I can't blame them if they go with Lerone Murphy. And at this point, Lerone Murphy's resume is pretty comparable to Evloev's. Evloev probably still has the better resume, you'd say, but spinning back elbow, man. Imagine Evloev trying to get a KO like that. Imagine Evloev trying to go for a finish like that. Now, I know Lerone Murphy was a perfectly timed, borderline. This is not me coping. It was a borderline kind of a fluke elbow. But at the same time, Aaron Pico just waddled in like a dummy. So it is what it is. He kind of almost deserved that just because, like, what are you even trying to do, Aaron Pico? And he got caught. And so I just think this is the fight. I think this fight will have some hype. I can't believe I'm saying this, but, like, if they had booked this fight before that spinning elbow, I wouldn't have cared. I would just be like, what are we doing here? But now, after that sick KO of the year contender, flatline KO, where Evloev, we haven't seen him since what? End of last year. You know, he was kind of being pushy about taking the Aaron Pico fight. He kind of finally gives in, right? Because that was a rumor, right? Was that, like, they wanted to do Evloev versus Pico, I think, and then it was like, oh, no, actually, well, let's break down the whole timeline, right? This is just an Evloev video, but Movsar Evloev was supposed to fight, all right, Aaron Pico in the main event of, like, an Apex event. He says, I'm good, right? That's the rumor. That's whatever. Then I guess they kept trying to make it, and they finally make it for the co-main event of UFC Abu Dhabi, whatever the fuck, fight night, right? The Whitaker versus the Ritter co-main. He then pulls out of that fight like on a week's notice. So at this point, you're just like, if you're Dana White, you're the UFC, you just put your hands up. Fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. He's a pedo anyways. And you just swat him away. So then you got Lerone Murphy who comes in. KO's the guy that you've been hyping up this whole time, that being Aaron Pico. And it just makes sense. No one else is available except Lerone Murphy or Movsar Evloev, and I don't blame them going with Lerone Murphy, as crazy as that sounds. So, Volk versus Lerone Murphy. The fight itself, I mean, obviously I'm a Volkanovski fan, so I wouldn't be too scared about this one, even though Lerone Murphy did just get a sick KO. Volk ain't waddling in like that, little bro. So, Volkanovski, I would trust him to win this one. I would trust him to win, but I would be kind of worried because can you imagine if whatever, I can't even say his name, Lerone Murphy, Lerone, try to say that 10 times fast. I'd be scared if Murphy fluked the KO. Imagine if it was Murphy of all people that fluked a KO against Volkanovski. I would literally, exactly, you wouldn't see me anymore. But I think stylistically it could be a good fight. I really do. I think Volkanovski he doesn't really have bad fights anyway, so this could be one of them ones. I can't say I'm losing my mind. I can't say his first name. Lerone. There you go. Lerone Murphy versus Alexander Volkanovski is the fight to make next for the featherweight title. The winner can fight the winner of Diego and Gene Silva maybe, or maybe Movsar Evloev can crawl out of his little cave. I don't know. But let's move on. I'm sick of saying Lerone Murphy's name. We already spoke on this bum, but let's do Movsar Evloev versus Yair Rodriguez. Bum versus bum. I was considering doing Evloev versus Chris Hansen, but, I don't want to... No, seriously, though. I forgot Yair existed. Honestly, I legitimately forgot this guy existed. But then I had to think of someone for Evloev to face. And then I said... Oh, yeah, Yair Rodriguez is, he's legit on the roster. He's legitimately, I don't know. Honestly, this fight, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Let's move on. What do you want me to say? You got one guy who fights once a year, another guy who fights once a year. Both of these guys are the most hated featherweights on the planet. Movsar Evloev is just injury-prone. Yair seems to be injury-prone, I guess, because why else does he fight once a year? I don't know. This fight is almost a terroristic fight to make. The winner could get a title shot. Never. The winner can get maybe a PFL title shot or something. I don't know. But Let's move on. Would this fight be fun?
No.
Let's just move on here. So we got Aaron Pico. I say we do A, Aaron Pico versus a gust of wind. B, we do Aaron Pico versus his McDonald's customers. Or C, we do Aaron Pico versus an old man in a retirement home, since that seems to be the only guy that wouldn't knock him out. But knowing Aaron Pico, he like honestly, look, let's be serious here. Aaron Pico, this guy, man. This guy, I just don't know. What do you do with this guy? Because it's like, when I tell you guys, it took me so long. I looked through Tapology. I looked through the UFC roster. I looked through different events to see the scheduling of it. Because I'm like really looking at the roster. Okay, who's a favorable matchup that Pico can win? That, you know, it'd be a decent name if he won. And you know what I mean? Like, obviously, look, I'm not going to completely give him, like, I'm not going to give him Nate Landwehr. No offense, I love Nate Landwehr, but I'm not going to give him Nate Landwehr or someone like that. So I decided to give him Calvin Kattar. Now, honestly, the thing is, does he deserve Calvin Kattar? No, but Calvin Kattar isn't ranked, because what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to give him a ranked opponent. I just didn't. I'm sorry. There's guys like Shepe Mariscal. There's guys like, you know, what's the guy, the Korean Ju Sang Yu, I think is his name. Korean Zombie Jr., they call him. You got Miguel Delgado, the guy that just knocked out Hyder Emil, I believe that's his name. You got a lot of good featherweights, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Malik Costa. And I could have put him against any of those names I just mentioned. But realistically, bro, the way that those guys are looking, you got Jose Miguel Delgado getting a bunch of first-round KOs. You got guys like Shepe Mariscal, who's just on a crazy winning streak. He's not getting a ranked opponent. You have too many killers. I want it to be fair to him, because I was considering, let's do Aaron Pico, Shepe Mariscal, or let's do Aaron Pico versus Ju Sang Yu, or Do Hoo Choi, but I think he's booked up against somebody. Like, I think Daniel Santos, I think he's fighting. So I'm going to be fair. I'm going to give him Calvin Kattar. It's winnable. It's another name. It's winnable for Calvin Kattar at this point, because I just don't know how good Aaron Pico really is. His chin seems like non-existent, and I get that Lerone Murphy did land an insane shot, but that's just not the first time that he's been flatlined. I'm talking about Pico, that is. It's not the first time he's been flatlined, so that in itself is a bad look. I don't know. No one eats that elbow, let's be honest, but I'm just saying, like, he keeps getting flatline killed. It can't be good for his brain, so yeah, I think you got to do Aaron Pico versus Calvin Kattar. Scheduling-wise, it matches up, and he should not fight another ranked guy. He doesn't deserve it. These Bellator guys do not deserve it. I decided to chuck this fight in there, but let's do Paulo Costa versus Brendan Allen. Not much to say here, to be honest. I think it's a good fight. I think stylistically it would be a really fun fight, and it's two guys with a bit of name value. They would talk good trash to each other. I don't think Paulo Costa should get a massive jump up, but this is a decent jump up. And I think Brendan Allen shouldn't get a big jump up either, because he had a pretty competitive fight with Marvin Vettori, and I don't know, he's not really, like, he's a bit of a win-win, lose-one right now, so he should not get, like, somebody like Rainier de Ritter or nothing. So sit down, little bro. You're going to fight Paulo Costa. It's a good name if he beats him. It's a good name if Costa beats him. I like this fight. The next fight I'm going to make, I cannot pass up on the opportunity to put this fight together. DDP versus RDR. This fight needs to happen. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Actually, to be honest, it does, because, like, neither guy took a lot of damage. I think it actually does make sense. I wouldn't even mind that as, like, a fight night main event in a crowded arena, or maybe like a co-main of a pay-per-view or something. I think it's a really good fight, to be honest with you. The goofiness of the two, you know, the goofy white European guys with 3 acronyms in their names. I just think it's phenomenal. So to me, this fight makes sense because, you know, you could do RDR versus Izzy. I mean, there's options, right? You could do RDR Izzy, you could do RDR Hernandez, who we'll get to. You could do RDR versus Amavov. Well, not really, because Amavov has got a fight booked up, right? So RDR Strickland maybe, but Strickland suspended. There's a couple of names, but then there's names, I don't really know what's going on with some of these guys. So I say just do RDR DDP in like December, November. RDR has been super active anyways, so he could take a few months off, and he's already fought 3 times this year. Like, I don't know if people realize RDR fought Kevin Holland in January, Bo Nickel like sometime in like March, I think, And then he beat Robert Whittaker, and he's probably going to fight at the end of this year. That's insane. That's absolutely insane from Rainier to Ritter. So you can't discredit this man. You can't freaking clown on this man. I think DDP is going to want to get right back in there. Again, didn't take any damage. You know, Khamzat's performance is getting glazed so much, but I'm not going to crap on it anymore. I've already said my piece on the fight and what I thought about the performance. But yeah, you know, Rainier to Ritter, DDP, this fight on paper, if you see that on paper, you're getting hyped up. You know that this is the most memeable fight like ever. You know what I mean? The memes that will come out of this fight in the build-up and even coming out of the fight itself, because you know it's going to be goofy. You know it's going to end up being a goofy fight. You know somebody's going to get a goofy KO or it's going to be a goofy decision. It's just going to be a goofy fight. So I say this has to be the next fight. I love it. And of course, there's a little bit of bias here because this is one of those fights I just really, really want for some reason. Not even for some reason. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. Who wouldn't want this fight? So this is the fight to make next for DDP and RDR. Finally, we got Khamzat Chimaev. Now, this one is a little bit tricky, right? Because if Khamzat really does want to fight in October, then I say we do Khamzat Chimaev versus Anthony Hernandez. Now, then you can get into the argument of who's more deserving, him or Rainier to Ritter, because that would be the thing, right? Is it, well, then if you're going to do RDR versus DDP, why not just give RDR the title shot and then do Hernandez versus DDP? Yeah, well, first of all, I really want to see the Goofy Goobers go at it. But I do think Hernandez has a better resume overall. Of course, RDR is coming off of a bigger win and a bigger name, but I think Hernandez overall has a better resume. You know, Roman Kopylov and freaking, who's the last guy I just beat? Oh, Roman Dolizia, that kid. And he's got some really, really nice wins on his resume. So I do think that, you know, of course, I wouldn't mind if they gave it to RDR over Hernandez. And it's also a little bit of a stylistic thing as well. I think stylistically, it's favorable. I really think, I'm going to say this, and I'll kind of get to this at the end actually, but I really do think Hernandez is the style to beat Chimaev. Now, as for Gourmet Chen Chen, this is a little bit tricky because Khamzat Chimaev is, of course, saying he wants to fight in October. After burp. Now, if he really wants to fight in October, you kind of have to give him Anthony Hernandez, I say. And I say that because, first of all, I just really want to see RDR DDP, so I'm sorry, RDR, but you're going to get skipped for a title shot. I also do low-key think Hernandez has a better overall resume than RDR. RDR is coming off of a better win, but his resume overall is not the best. And also, like, Hernandez has more finishes, better performances. And I do think stylistically he is the matchup. He is the guy to beat Chimaev. I'm not saying he's going to beat Chimaev. I'm not even saying I'm picking him to beat Chimaev. But I'm saying stylistically he would be the one guy I would have a look at, you know? Now that's if Chimaev really wants to fight in October. If he really doesn't, if he's just yapping and he wants to fight, let's say, in February or January, then I really say you have to do him versus a Mavov or Baraujo, whoever wins that fight. Because I'm pretty sure it's going to be a Mavov, by the way, but who knows with these fighting nerds. But I do think a Mavov or Baraujo should be the next guy. I just don't think that is the number one contender fight. That is the fight, in my opinion. A Mavov is coming off of an Israel Adesanya KO. Baraujo, he's coming off of a Jared Cannonier win a year and a half ago, but still, you know, it's deserved. If he were to beat a Mavov, it would be deserving. So, yeah, it just depends on how active Chimaev really does want to be. It seems like Dana is up for it. It seems like I would imagine the UFC would want Chimaev on that October pay-per-view. Like, why would they complain about that, right? So that could be the co-main of because you could do what? Aspinall versus Cirogan, co-main event Chimaev versus Anthony Hernandez. I'm sold right there. And that's a good way actually of getting a good spotlight on Aspinall. But then what would be kind of interesting is Chimaev really going to be the co-main event under Aspinall? Ooh. See, that's where it gets interesting. Damn, that's going to be tricky for them to figure out, but you could actually put that on that card, right? Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so Chimaev, I do think him versus Hernandez is the fight I would want to see if he really wants to be active. If not, just wait to do him versus a Mavov or Baraujo. In terms of who could actually beat Khamzat Chimaev, I do think Fluffy is the best chance. I think, you know, his grappling is really good. His jiu-jitsu is very good. I don't know how defensively sound he is on the ground in terms of, if he's in bad positions. But what Fluffy could do different is I could see Fluffy being the one to initiate the wrestling, being the one to go for the takedowns, the double legs, the inside trips, the clinch work, stuff like that. So I do think Fluffy has a better chance than most of these other guys, if not all these other guys. So I wouldn't pick him to win. I can't pick against Chimaev. I'm not making that same mistake, sadly. But I would definitely be rooting for him. I'll admit that at least. So on top of that, he has insane cardio, insane pressure. He's pretty good on the feet. He seems to have a good chin as well. He's a bit soft to the body, but Chimaev ain't throwing no body shots against Fluffy, bro. Chimaev is a very singular, jab, low kick. He's just a very kind of one-note striker. RDR could have a solid chance because of how imposing he is and how tall he is. He has good jiu-jitsu, but at the same time, I could see it kind of being similar to Chimaev versus DDP. Not just because RDR is similar to DDP. I know RDR's frame is different. He's a bit taller, right? But that might actually favor Chimaev, to be honest with you, because when you're a stockier guy like DDP, and don't get me wrong, RDR is very stocky, but he's not really stocky. He's more lanky, though, to be honest with you. But when you're like a stocky guy like DDP, it's actually harder to get certain submissions, like a Darce choke, for example. Whereas I think RDR with his long neck and his kind of long arms, I do think it'd actually be a better time for Chimaev. So, yeah, I don't know. I think RDR, he has really good strength, but I ain't going to go off that no more. I made that mistake with DDP, so I do think Chimaev would have this one pretty comfortably. RDR on the feet wouldn't really do much to Chimaev because I just think, again, it'd be like the DDP fight. He'd get the takedowns. And, RDR, him being as tall as he is, might be worse because it might be easier to just knock that big tree down, So, yeah. And then, same with a Mavov, same with Baraujo. I think Baraujo has a decent chance as well. He does have good jiu-jitsu, but, bro, I saw him train with Chimaev. I saw him get ragdolled by Chimaev in training. Strickland admitted he got ragdolled by Chimaev in training. Come on. So I really do think the only name I could see really giving Chimaev problems is Anthony Hernandez, and then maybe an RDR. But again, I'd really have to look into RDR a little bit more. I'd have to really, really analyze his fights and really just see. But I'm leaning towards Anthony Hernandez being maybe the only hope as the guy to beat Chimaev. That's all I got for you guys today. Please like and sub, comment, share, blah, blah, blah. We'll never forget you, DDP. # thank you, DDP. See you guys next time. Peace.